There is only one thing terrible: not to be yourself. I wrote those words a long time ago, and to be honest, I didn't write them out of wisdom. I wrote them out of loneliness. My name is Hermann Hesse. I was born in 1877 in a small town in southern Germany, into a family of missionaries who spoke more about God than about dreams. Very early, I realized my faith would be different, not devoted to churches, but to the human soul. I was expelled from several schools for disobedience, briefly sent to an asylum, and later chose poetry over the career my parents had planned for me. I lived through 2 world wars, watched Europe lose its mind, and refused to bow to nationalism. They called me a traitor, a coward, a madman. But I was none of those things. I was simply awake in a world that preferred to sleep. All my life I tried to belong to my family, to my country, to society, to God. And every time I succeeded, something inside me quietly died. I had the heart of a poet and the skin of a wolf. The more I tried to fit in, the more my soul bit back. So one day, I stopped running from the bite. I opened a notebook and wrote the book of my difference. Steppenwolf. Tonight, I won't tell you the whole story of that book. For that, I gently encourage you to read it yourself, preferably at night, when the world grows still enough for you to hear your own thoughts. What I want to do instead is hold it up as a mirror, to explore why being different can ache so deeply, why belonging often feels like betrayal, and how that very pain can become art. This isn't a lecture, it's a quiet walk, you and me, through the hidden corridors of the soul, guided by the same question that haunted me all my life: how to remain fully oneself in a world that worships imitation. Steppenwolf was born in 1927. Europe was dancing on the edge of madness. My marriage was collapsing, and I spent my nights walking alone through the rain in Montagnola, eyes lost somewhere between the sky and the abyss. That's when I began writing about a man who felt like 2 beings trapped in one skin. Harry Haller, half man, half wolf. He was too lucid to be happy, too alive to stay silent. He despised society's shallow comforts, but secretly longed for its warmth. He was me, and not me, a mirror for every soul that feels both wild and weary, both craving freedom and terrified of it. Through him, I could finally confess what I never dared to say out loud, that beneath our polite masks, there's a creature howling for truth. And perhaps that's why Steppenwolf still speaks to you a century later, because every thinking person eventually meets that wolf within. People think that story is about me. It isn't. It's about you. If you've ever walked through a party feeling invisible, if you've smiled at people who could never understand the storms you hide, if you've ever whispered to yourself, "Why can't I fit anywhere?" then you and I share the same silence. Steppenwolf isn't a book about madness. It's a book about clarity. The moment you realize your difference isn't a flaw in your design, but proof of your awareness. Tonight I won't give you mantras or easy tricks. No 5 ways to love yourself or 3 steps to confidence. I want to give you something rarer, a language for your difference. Stay with me, and I'll show you how to turn solitude into wisdom, marginality into art, and pain into quiet light. Because not belonging isn't a curse, it's a calling. A call to create yourself, gently, bravely, and with humor. The city sleeps. The rain has stopped. Somewhere far away, a wolf lifts its eyes to the moon. He no longer searches for a pack. He just watches the sky and understands he was never truly alone. And neither are you. If you want to keep walking beside me, stay here with us in the Sleepless Society. It's not a brand or a program. It's a quiet circle without walls, dogmas, or noise. A refuge for those who stay awake while the world drifts off. Here, poets, philosophers, and restless souls gather to whisper truth in the dark. Every night, another voice joins. Sometimes Nietzsche, sometimes Rumi, sometimes me. We speak softly about freedom, about beauty, about what's left of the human heart in an age that forgets to feel. And if this story resonated with you, leave a gentle subscribe and a small comment to tell us where in the world you're listening from. It helps us keep this light alive and reminds us that somewhere out there, another sleepless soul is still awake with us tonight. And now, let me take you back to where it all began, before the books, before the peace, before the wisdom, to the young Hermann Hesse, rebellious and wounded, discovering for the first time that he could never truly belong. I was born in a house where even laughter had to behave. My parents were missionaries, good souls, gentle voices, endless prayers. They believed salvation came from obedience. I believed it came from wonder. You can imagine how well that went. When I was 16, they sent me to a seminary to discipline my spirit. I lasted a few weeks. Then I ran away, twice. The doctors called me unstable. They locked me up for my own good. I remember the smell of disinfectant, the white walls, the soft voices asking me to be reasonable. Everyone told me to calm down. I tried. It almost killed me. Most people are like a leaf, blown by the wind, going wherever it takes them. Others are like stars, following a fixed path. No wind reaches them. They have within themselves their guide and their path. That line I wrote later, after I'd escaped, and I suppose it was my quiet confession. I was never meant to be a leaf. My nature was to resist, to ask questions that polite society preferred, left unanswered. Back then, they gave me pills. Today, they'd give you productivity hacks and call it wellness. I see the same thing now. People smiling through burnout, whispering affirmations they don't believe, pretending exhaustion is purpose. We package anxiety as ambition, loneliness as independence, and sadness as content. The only difference between my asylum and yours is Wi-Fi. After I escaped, I entered the polite world of adults, the bourgeois dream. Polite dinners, polite opinions, polite despair. They lived according to the holy trinity of the mediocre: security, moderation, reputation. They wanted me to be a model citizen. I preferred to be a question mark. You know that dinner where everyone debates mortgage rates or investments, and you sit there wondering if any of them have ever cried to music? Yes, that one. That was my life for years. I played along, smiled, nodded, sipped the wine, said interesting at the right time. Then I'd go home and feel the walls closing in around me, wondering if anyone else noticed how much pretending costs. They said I was distant. I wasn't. I was just honest. I couldn't pretend that this was enough. These narrow lives, these careful loves, this quiet conformity disguised as happiness. They found peace in sameness. I found panic in it. That's when the wolf started scratching again, the part of me that refused to sit quietly, the instinct that would rather howl alone than whisper a lie among friends. For years, I tried to bury him under politeness, under books, under small talk. But the more I tried to kill him, the louder he became. It is not a comfortable feeling to be lonely, to be surrounded by people, and yet feel the desire to run away from them. And still, that is what I was made for. My only comfort was to be alone with myself. That's how Steppenwolf was born. From the moment I stopped silencing the wolf and let him speak, he became my mirror. Harry Haller, the intellectual who despised society but secretly longed to be touched by it. The man who convinced himself he didn't need love but kept waiting for someone to knock anyway. And maybe that's you too. The part of you that hides behind irony, saying you don't care, while secretly hoping someone will see through the act. The part that wants to be free, but also wants to be held. Here's the truth I learned the hard way. Belonging isn't a place, it's a trade. You pay for comfort with authenticity. You hand over your wildness, your edges, your truth in exchange for approval. And one day, you realize that fitting in didn't make you safe. It made you small. Each time you shrink to fit, you disappear a little more. I tried belonging. I tried behaving. I tried being normal. And all it ever gave me was silence where my spirit used to sing. So if you ever wonder why you feel torn between the part of you that wants peace and the part that wants freedom, remember that tension is not your flaw. It's your proof of being alive. The wolf and the man were never enemies. They were simply waiting for each other to speak. But once they finally meet, once silence breaks and truth begins to growl, something changes. The rebellion that used to face the world turns inward. The battle no longer happens outside of you, but within you. And that, my friend, is where our story truly begins. In the quiet war between instinct and intellect, between the wild and the wise, the war that every honest soul must one day face. There's a strange kind of pain that comes from seeing too clearly. I once wrote, "When you see too clearly, even beauty begins to ache." And I meant it, because the mind, when it wakes too fast, burns the heart before the body has time to catch up. In Steppenwolf, Harry Haller is a man consumed by that kind of vision. He lives alone, surrounded by books, haunted by music, disgusted by the mediocrity of the world, yet unable to leave it. Every day he wakes with the same contradiction, the desire to disappear, and the unbearable need to understand. He is in truth my shadow, and perhaps yours too, because he feels what every lucid soul eventually feels, that the more awake you become, the harder it is to live among the sleepwalkers. For years, I tried to make peace between my two halves, the thinker and the wolf. One wanted to write poetry, the other wanted to run barefoot into the forest. One sought meaning in philosophy, the other found it in a single breath of wind. Every morning, I felt like an orchestra that refused to tune. Harry lived that same dissonance. His life was filled with half-finished friendships, failed loves, endless nights of wine and disgust. He thought too much, felt too deeply, and couldn't forgive himself for either. "I am tired of myself," he says in the book, and I was too. There were nights when I didn't want to go on, nights when the quiet felt heavier than sound, when even my books stared back at me like tombstones. The doctors called it depression. I called it honesty, because once you've seen through all the illusions, the polite smiles, the busy distractions, the hollow promises, what's left to hold on to? Clarity is a cruel light. It shows you everything, including the cracks. And you might think things are different now, but they aren't. You've just given new names to the same ghosts. You no longer visit priests, you visit podcasts. You don't confess to the divine, you confess to your followers. You speak in therapy jargon, post infographics about your trauma, analyze your attachment style, track your moods on an app. You can describe every wound in high definition, yet you've forgotten how to heal. We've become experts in describing our pain, amateurs in living through it. And maybe you too are tired of that endless dissection of the self, the constant self-audit, the search for the perfect label that will finally make you feel whole. Anxious avoidant, creative introvert, empath, overthinker, titles for ghosts. Maybe it's time to stop dissecting the wolf and start listening to him. When I finally stopped trying to cure myself, something unexpected happened. Silence. Not the empty kind, but the kind that holds you, like the forest does when you stop running. It wasn't peace yet, but it was the beginning. You see, awareness without compassion becomes torture. You can't think your way out of pain. You can only understand it enough to soften. The mind may explain the cracks, but only the heart can fill them. That's when Harry and I began to change. We realized we didn't need to kill the wolf or lecture the man. We needed to let them both speak, because maybe the real strength isn't choosing sides. It's learning to hold opposites without breaking. That's what Steppenwolf truly was, not a confession, but a conversation between instinct and intellect, between the wild and the wise, between who we are and who we fear to become. And if you stay with me, I'll show you what happens when that war no longer destroys you, but starts to teach you. We built a civilization of masks. The quieter your soul, the louder you must pretend to be. In Steppenwolf, I wrote about the bourgeois world, that soft, smiling prison where everyone lives according to the same script. Work, dine, sleep, repeat. Harry Heller walks through that world like a ghost, watching men chase respectability the way children chase coins in a fountain. Desperate, breathless, convinced that if they stop, they'll vanish. He goes to their dinners, listens to their small talk, watches their faces glow with self-importance, and feels the same nausea I felt in my own time. I cannot bear their cheerfulness, he confesses, for it is not born of joy, but of blindness. That blindness is still here. The faces have changed, but the fear behind them hasn't. In my day, people polished their reputations. Today, you curate your profiles. Same fear, shinier mirror. I used to see my neighbors straighten their posture before leaving the house, just to look well. Now you do it through a screen. You adjust your lighting, filter your skin, rehearse your happiness. It's the same old theater, only the curtain is digital. Harry despised that theater because he saw through it. He wasn't angry at the people. He pitied them. They were terrified of silence, terrified of their own depths. They hid behind chatter, fashion, and moral certainty. Anything to avoid meeting the stranger inside. And you do the same now, only with better Wi-Fi. You call it networking. I called it hypocrisy with snacks. You speak of personal brands, as if the self were a product on sale. Consciousness turned into marketing. You post quotes about authenticity while timing the upload for peak engagement. You collect validation like old men used to collect medals. The bourgeois once feared being poor. You fear being unseen. And I don't say that with cruelty. I say it with tenderness, because I know what it means to hide. I too once wanted to be liked by people I didn't even respect. I wanted applause, proof that I mattered. But applause is a strange sound. It fills the air and empties the heart. Your world praises uniqueness but rewards imitation. You're told to be yourself, as long as that self fits the trend cycle. Hustle culture, influencer spirituality, LinkedIn humility posts. It's all the same religion. A gospel of endless effort and quiet despair. You don't post because you're happy. You post so the algorithm won't forget you exist. And what about happiness? It's been replaced by performance. The word authentic has become a costume, worn, sold, monetized. You can now buy scented candles that promise mindfulness and t-shirts that scream, "Be kind." The modern world has managed to industrialize sincerity. I tease you because I love you, because I see myself in your fatigue, the exhaustion of pretending, the craving to belong in a world that never really looks back. When I wrote about the bourgeois, I wasn't mocking them. I was warning myself, because the wolf in me didn't hate the herd. He pitied it. They weren't evil. They were frightened. Frightened of silence, of solitude, of the truth that belonging can suffocate as easily as it comforts. Harry Haller tried to belong too. He envied their simplicity, their laughter, their illusions. But every time he tried to join them, his soul bit back. Because once you've tasted depth, surface pleasures can't feed you anymore. The wolf is not the danger. The herd's fear of difference is. That fear built the prisons of my time and the timelines of yours. It's the same instinct, to chase away whatever doesn't mirror us perfectly, to exile the ones who make us question ourselves. But remember, everything original was once strange. Every soul that ever woke up looked like a threat before it became a teacher. And that's why I wrote Steppenwolf. Not to judge the world, but to hold up a mirror to it, and to remind you that even if the reflection frightens you, it's still yours. Because the real revolution doesn't happen outside, in crowds or slogans. It happens inside, in silence. That's where the wildest part of us hides, waiting to be seen. And that's where Harry Haller goes next, into the place I invented for him, and perhaps for myself. A place where illusion breaks and truth begins. I called it the Magic Theater. In the book, the hero, Harry Haller, enters a place I invented and that remains one of the most precious creations of my life, the Magic Theater. I called it the Magic Theater not because there was magic in it, but because there was finally honesty. A place where the walls of my mind opened like doors, and behind each door, a different version of me was waiting. I thought I was two beings, man and wolf. But when I stepped inside, I realized I was 1,000. And for the first time, I loved them all. There was the child who still wanted to dance barefoot in the rain, the cynic who mocked love but secretly believed in it, the artist who wrote too much, the hermit who spoke too little, the lover who wanted to be free, the thinker who wanted to disappear. All of them were me, fragments of one immense consciousness pretending to be simple. And I remember writing in that book, which was not a story but a confession, all existence seemed to be one great music, in which the instruments and players were myself, and all the sounds, all the tones, all the notes were but the echo of my own being. For I had discovered that within me there was not one self but many, that my soul was a world of countless possibilities. I wrote that line with trembling hands because it frightened me. The idea that I could be so many things at once, that the contradictions I spent years trying to silence were not my weakness, but my wholeness. That perhaps the self isn't something we build, but something we remember, piece by piece, when the noise fades. That was the moment everything changed. I stopped searching for a single identity, a tidy definition of who I was. The mind craves simplicity, but the soul thrives in paradox. You see, the tragedy of modern man is not that he's divided. It's that he's been taught to choose only one mask and wear it until he forgets his face. I invite you to imagine your own magic theater. Picture the inside of your mind as a long hallway lined with doors. Behind one, the child you silenced when you became mature. Behind another, the artist you buried under practicality. Behind another, the brave version of you who stopped trying because failure hurt too much. Open the doors, one by one. They're waiting for you. Today, you call it self-discovery, therapy rooms, meditation apps, personality tests, all glimpses of the same theater. But too often, you turn it into performance. You post your breakthroughs, monetize your healing, compare your progress. And that's when the theater closes again. We call it self-care now, yet half of it is marketing. Buy this candle, read this book, manifest this life. Real self-care begins when no one's watching, when you can sit in silence with every version of yourself and whisper, I see you. You're not perfect, but you belong here too. Because freedom doesn't begin with control. It begins when you stop needing to be consistent, when you stop asking, who am I supposed to be today? And simply answer, all of me. You are not broken, you are symphonic. Every contradiction in you is a note in a greater melody. The point is not to erase dissonance, but to learn how to let it sing. So if you ever feel crazy, relax. It means you're finally meeting the rest of yourself. Yes, it's uncomfortable. You'll cry, laugh, fall apart, rebuild, and repeat. But that's not chaos. That's life rehearsing its beauty. The orchestra tuning before the music begins. In the magic theater, I learned that salvation doesn't come from becoming someone new. It comes from forgiving everyone you've been. And once you've done that, once you've met all the versions of yourself without fear, something extraordinary happens. The world outside starts to make sense again. Because now you can walk through it without pretending. You can stop chasing perfection and start practicing truth. You can begin to live not as a stranger to yourself, but as an artist of your own being. And that's what I want to show you next. How to take this inner harmony out into the world. How to live, work, love, and breathe as someone who no longer hides their strangeness. The goal isn't to fit in, it's to find harmony within. When Harry Haller left the Magic Theatre, he was not a saint, nor a sage, just a man who had seen too much of himself to go back to sleep. The walls of his mind had shattered, and through the cracks, life was shining in. He had met his ghosts, danced with his demons, and learned, for the first time, to laugh. Not at the world, but with it. In that laughter, something changed. The bitterness softened. The war quieted. He could still feel the wolf inside, still hear the voice of doubt. But now they were part of the same music. He had learned what all awakening souls must learn, that the point is not to win the fight within you, but to turn it into art. When I wrote about the Magic Theatre, I wasn't describing a dream. I was describing that realization. Through Harry, I discovered something I had never lived fully myself, the art of being many things without shame. I understood that we are not born to become one perfect self, but to let all ourselves breathe in the same room without fighting. And once you do, you stop needing to apologize for being complicated. In one of my journals, I wrote, "It is not the task of enlightenment to make the world uniform, but to make the soul vast enough to contain it." That became my compass. Because you see, life never stops trying to shrink you. Every era invents its own form of obedience. In mine, it was respectability, conformity disguised as virtue. In yours, it's self-optimization, conformity disguised as freedom. You are told to be yourself, but only if it photographs well. You call it authenticity, but it's often just performance in better lighting. Harry learned, as you must, that the real test of individuality is not isolation, it's participation without imitation. To walk among others, not as an actor playing his part, but as a soul awake in a world half asleep. You brand yourself as if you were a company. You optimize your mornings, track your sleep, measure your joy. You chase self-improvement like a marathon, terrified to stop running in case someone overtakes you. You fear missing out, but what if what you're really missing is yourself? Try this instead. Walk without headphones. Let the noise of the world rearrange your thoughts. Sit with one idea long enough for it to stop being an enemy. Write something you'll never post, not because it's perfect, but because it's honest. And love the parts of you that don't make sense. The nervous laughter, the irrational hopes, the soft spots you hide under irony. They are the roots of your art, not your shame. I've seen the same sickness in every century, the fear of stillness, the terror of being unproductive. People fill their lives with noise because silence reveals the truth, that peace is not something you achieve, it's something you allow. Back in my day, people feared boredom. Now you fear being offline. You carry your distractions in your pocket, scrolling through lives that look shinier than yours, forgetting that even light creates shadows. But peace isn't found in comparison. It begins the moment you stop performing your life and start inhabiting it. I smile when I think of how often the world misread solitude as arrogance. The lone wolf doesn't reject the pack out of pride. He just hears another rhythm. And sometimes that rhythm saves him. So if you feel out of sync, if you can't move to the beat everyone else seems to follow, that's not failure. That's your music asking to be heard. You see, peace isn't conformity, it's coherence. When who you are inside finally matches how you move through the world. And when that happens, you stop needing permission to exist. You stop asking for validation from people who haven't met themselves yet. You begin to walk slower, speak softer, feel deeper, not because you've escaped the world, but because you've finally joined it on your own terms. Don't try to belong. Try to resonate. Because when you live in harmony with yourself, You no longer need the world's approval to feel alive. The city is asleep. The rain has stopped. I walk once more through the quiet streets, the same ones from the beginning, though everything feels different now. The lamps flicker softly on the wet pavement, and the night itself seems to breathe, calm and endless. Once I feared being different. Now I fear becoming like everyone else. Above me the moon hangs, solitary yet radiant. She doesn't compete with the stars. She doesn't beg to be understood. She simply shines, alone in her orbit, perfectly herself. Belonging was never the goal. Understanding yourself was. It took me half a lifetime to learn that. I fought the world. I fought my instincts. I fought the silence inside me, until I realized that peace doesn't come when you stop feeling. It comes when you stop pretending. Harry Haller learned the same truth. After all his battles, his solitude, his disgust for the world, he entered the magic theater expecting revelation, and instead found laughter. Not the mocking kind, but the kind that forgives. The laughter of someone who finally understands that life, in all its absurdity, is still worth loving. He didn't become a saint or a sage. He simply learned to live, to accept contradiction as his nature, to find beauty in imperfection, and to forgive himself for being human. That's the freedom of the wolf. Not detachment, but understanding. Not superiority, but serenity. All my life, I tried to choose between my halves, the thinker or the dreamer, the man or the wolf. I believed one had to win for me to be whole. But what if the truth is that both were right? That the tension between them was not a flaw, but the pulse of life itself? And one evening, when I could no longer stand the noise of my own mind, a simple thought crossed me like a quiet storm. He who wants to be born must first destroy a world. Not the outer one, but the inner world built on illusion. The false identities, the borrowed voices, the small comforts that kept me asleep. To be reborn is not to start again. It's to integrate every fragment of who you were, even the ones you once despised, until even your scars begin to glow. Look at the wolf now. He walks among the sleeping sheep, not angry, not superior, simply awake. He doesn't hide his shadow anymore. He walks beside it. He doesn't despise the herd. He just doesn't need it to know who he is. The battle is over. Not because one side has conquered the other, but because both have learned to listen. That's what awakening feels like. Not fireworks, not triumph, but a quiet, grounded clarity. The kind that makes you smile at your own reflection and finally say, "Ah, so this is me." Tonight, we walk through that journey together, through rebellion, despair, contradiction, and finally, toward peace. Not the peace of belonging, but the peace of coherence. You've seen that difference is not a curse, but a kind of wisdom. That solitude is not exile, but a mirror. That freedom begins not with escape, but with acceptance. So if you ever feel lost, remember, you're not behind, you're not broken, you're simply still in the process of meeting yourself. It takes time to make peace with your own depths. It takes courage to live truthfully in a world that rewards imitation. But you will get there. Slowly, quietly, beautifully. And when you do, you'll realize that being different was never the problem. It was always the invitation. The city still sleeps, but somewhere far off, a single wolf howls, not in pain, not in loneliness, but in recognition. a sound older than language, soft as forgiveness, strong as truth. And this time, Harry laughs. If this story touched you, share it with someone who feels out of place. The most beautiful stories are meant to be shared, not for fame, but for light. Each time they're told, they travel a little further into the dark, reaching someone who needs to remember that their strangeness, too, is sacred. And now, I'll let you rest. Close your eyes, my friend. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. The night is long, but you're no longer walking it alone.